There's an animal that some researchers have ranked as one of the most efficient meat animals on the planet. Better than a pig in some comparisons, way better than a cow. You've probably seen one. Maybe you've owned one. Under intensive production, a single breeding doe can produce several times her own body weight in meat over the course of a year. If you were designing the perfect meat animal from scratch, you'd end up drawing something a lot like this. So why have you probably never eaten one? I'm talking about the rabbit. And here's where it gets weird, because being this efficient doesn't automatically make an animal cheap or common, or something you'll find at your local grocery store. There's a whole hidden chain of reasons why, and some of them are going to surprise you. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with the basics. What does efficient even mean when we're talking about meat? It comes down to one core question. How much food does an animal need to eat to turn into meat you can actually eat? Under some published agricultural comparisons, rabbits convert somewhere around 1/5 of the protein they eat into edible meat. That's meaningfully higher than cattle, which typically sit in the 8 to 12% range in similar comparisons. It's also ahead of pigs in a lot of studies. Now, comparing animals like this is messier than it sounds. Different farms, different feed, different measurement standards. But across multiple sources, the pattern holds. Rabbits are unusually good at turning plant protein into meat. And their reproduction speed is almost cheating. A rabbit's pregnancy lasts about a month. She can have 8 to 12 babies in a single litter. And those babies can reach market weight in a matter of weeks. USDA classifies a young rabbit, or fryer, as one under about 12 weeks old. Compare that to a cow, one calf a year after a 9-month pregnancy, and over a year before it's grown. So on paper, rabbits look like a biological jackpot. But here's the problem. Being efficient to raise is only half the equation. What actually determines the price of your dinner is what happens after the animal is grown. And this is where rabbits start losing ground. Modern chicken plants are basically machines. Automated hanging lines, automated stunning, robotic evisceration. Some lines process thousands of birds an hour. Rabbit processing never got anywhere close to that. Rabbits have a different body shape, thinner skin, and more delicate bones than chickens. And over the last century, the industry never developed anything close to the massive, specialized, automated infrastructure that got built for poultry. So in practice, most rabbit meat sold in the US today is still processed largely by hand. And hand labor is expensive. It adds cost to every single animal, in a way that automated chicken processing simply doesn't have to deal with. So already, before we even get to regulations or marketing, rabbit meat starts from a cost disadvantage chicken never had to overcome. And it gets stranger. Here's something almost nobody knows, and it's genuinely one of the most surprising parts of this story. In the US, meat animals fall into 2 legal buckets, amenable and non-amenable. Cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, those are amenable species. They fall under mandatory federal inspection systems built specifically for them. Rabbits are classified as non-amenable. USDA inspection for rabbit processors is voluntary, and when a processor requests it, in order to get that official stamp most grocery chains require, it comes with reimbursable costs the processor has to cover themselves. So think about what that means. The biggest meat industries in the country operate inside a mandatory federal inspection framework. Small rabbit processors, the ones already dealing with high manual labor costs, are working inside a completely different system, a voluntary one, that wasn't designed with a small, decentralized industry in mind. That's not a conspiracy. It's just a regulatory structure that never evolved around rabbit meat the way it did around beef, pork, and poultry. But the effect is the same either way. It makes scaling a rabbit meat business genuinely harder. Now put all of this together and look at what it can actually cost you at the store. Fresh chicken commonly runs somewhere in the $1.50 to $3.50 a pound range. Rabbit, when you can find it, especially through specialty butchers or online meat retailers, often runs anywhere from $10 up to $25 a pound, depending on the cut, the retailer, and whether it's fresh or frozen. That's not a small gap, even accounting for the variation. And for a lot of families, once the price is that far out of reach, the conversation just ends there. It doesn't matter how efficient the animal was to raise. The sticker price is what people actually see. And just to be clear, this isn't only a historical problem. It's still happening right now. Since 2020, a highly contagious disease called rabbit hemorrhagic disease virus serotype 2 (RHDV2), has been spreading through wild and domestic rabbit populations across the U.S. federal agencies describe it as highly contagious and often fatal, capable of wiping out a large share of an infected group. This doesn't explain why rabbit meat disappeared from American kitchens decades ago. That story started long before this disease existed. But it does explain why the small industry that's left today has an even harder time growing. Farmers now have to budget for biosecurity and vaccination just to protect a margin that was already razor thin. So on top of expensive processing and an unusual regulatory structure, there's now a live disease threat sitting on top of everything else. And that's around when something happened in this industry that honestly surprised me. There's a company called Pell Freeze. It started as a backyard rabbit farm back in 1911, and it eventually grew into the largest commercial rabbit meat processor in the entire United States. You'd think that means rabbit meat had cracked the code, real commercial success. But here's the twist. Over time, Pell Freeze didn't grow bigger in the meat business. Its long-term success came increasingly from biomedical products rather than rabbit meat, supplying rabbit-derived materials like blood serum and antibodies for vaccine research and diagnostics. The company that arguably cracked commercial rabbit farming harder than anyone else in American history ended up building its future somewhere else entirely. So even if the economics somehow worked out, there's still one more wall in the way, and it's not really about price at all. We don't actually choose which animals become food, purely based on efficiency or nutrition. Cultures build mental categories. This animal is food, this animal is a companion, this animal is wildlife. And once an animal lands in one category, it's psychologically hard to move it into another. In American culture, rabbits mostly landed in the pet and cartoon character category. Bugs Bunny, the Easter Bunny, a kid's first pet. That's a strong, early association, and it's very different from the category chickens and cows occupy in most people's minds. Nobody grows up with a chicken as a childhood best friend in a cartoon. Plenty of people grow up with exactly that image of a rabbit. That category doesn't get undone by a nutrition label. And USDA materials actually describe rabbit meat as fine-grained and mild-flavored, similar in versatility to young poultry. But that fact barely matters if the animal was never mentally filed under food in the first place. And that creates a loop. Stores won't stock what people don't buy, and people don't buy what they never see. Low demand and low availability just keep feeding each other. But here's the thing, this wasn't always the case in America. During the Great Depression and World War II, backyard rabbit raising was actively promoted, including by government agencies, as an accessible, unrationed source of protein families could raise using garden scraps. Then, after the war, something shifted. The chicken industry started industrializing at a pace almost nothing else in agriculture could match, new genetics that made birds grow faster, new automated processing lines, new vertically integrated companies controlling everything from the egg to the grocery shelf. Chicken went from an occasional Sunday dinner to the cheapest, most convenient meat in the country, almost overnight in agricultural terms. Rabbit farming didn't have any of that. No major genetics push, no automated processing, no large companies buying feed at industrial scale. It stayed exactly what it had always been, small, regional, and manual, while everything around it modernized. And here's the part that actually matters, the part that answers the question this whole video started with. Rabbit didn't suddenly become less efficient. Nothing changed about the animal. It's still that same efficient protein converter it always was. What changed is that chicken became something rabbit never could. A fully industrialized, vertically integrated, almost frictionless supply chain. Rabbit's biology stayed exactly the same. Chicken's economics simply left it behind. So it's not that rabbit farming got worse. It's that it stood still while chicken sprinted past it. And once chicken became that cheap and that available, there was no real economic reason left to bring rabbit back into the mainstream. So this isn't really a story about rabbits failing on their own. It's a story about chicken winning, and almost everything else getting left behind in the process. So here's the real takeaway. Rabbits really do appear to be one of the more biologically efficient meat animals, at least by several agricultural measures. But efficiency on a farm and affordability at the grocery store are two very different battles, and rabbit has been losing the second one for decades. manual processing costs, a regulatory system built for other species, real disease risk, and a deep cultural pet, not protein association all stacked up against it. It's a rare case where the best option on paper isn't the one that wins in the real world. And that pattern shows up more often than you'd think, in food, in business, in technology. The most efficient thing doesn't automatically become the most common thing. So would you actually eat rabbit if it cost the same as chicken? Let me know in the comments, because apparently being efficient isn't the same thing as making us hungry. And if you like digging into the hidden economics behind stuff we eat without ever questioning it, that's exactly what this channel is for, so stick around. See you in the next one.